From the Second Street Dreams Audio Network, this is Classical Music in Color, a show about and for people of color. I'm Judelyn Gibson. So, what's next in the classical music community? Errin Hatter of Houston is next. She started I Colori Dell'opera, an opera company aimed at increasing minority representation in this mostly white art form. And what would this show be without the music? We'll be listening to the music of Rudy Perrault, one of the Haitian composers on the album Tanbou Caché, or Hidden Drum. It's fresh out this month, and we'll be talking to the producer of this album, Diana Golden, a cellist. You're listening to Classical Music in Color on the Second Street Dreams Audio Network on secondstreetdreams.com. Why would you want to start a business now?
Oh, it really is the strangest time to start any business. My name is Errin Hatter. I'm the founder and executive director of I Colori Dell'opera here in Houston, Texas. I Colori Dell'opera means the colors of opera.
Tell me a little bit about you.
I'm an opera singer, a freelance opera singer here in Houston. I have been teaching in the Texas Public Classroom for 11 years, both Spanish language and choir. Also, I have my Master's of Liberal Arts in Music Performance from the University of St. Thomas, also here in Houston. There's a theme there.
The opera, tell me all about that. How did you get the idea? Why? What's happening with that?
This goes back to even when I was just a lot younger here in Houston. I always thought that opera singers looked a certain way, and I did not believe that I had that look. Even though I enjoyed classical music from a very young age, that's something that my parents instilled in me. They love all types of music, including classical. But when I was here in Houston, I remember the one company that does exist here, Houston Ebony Opera Guild. They did an opera, and I believe it was Carmen, and they based it in Cuba. And that was the first time that I saw something close to me where there was Black excellence on a stage doing opera, as opposed to musical theater or R&B, those areas that African American singers were supposed to go into, or so I thought. So I saw that, and I took a chance and started taking voice lessons. And long story, but let me move forward. When I got older, I noticed that there are a lot of talented African American singers here in Houston, and we're not getting cast. There's so many jobs, but there's not a lot of opera opportunities here in Houston. We have three major companies that everyone knows about, and then we have some smaller movements. But as far as consistently being cast as lead roles and not just as choristers, that was not happening unless you left Houston. And I just had a conversation. It happened backstage with some of my friends. And I said, what would you think if I just said, you know what, let's just start a company. Let's start somewhere where we can perform regularly. And we can do these concerts and these operas that are not happening here in Houston. We can do concerts that are not a part of the opera canon. And a lot of my friends said, if you do this, I'm with you. And that's how I started. And I started organizing, figuring out what would be the best way to get the word out there and figuring out the best programming. And it's still a work in progress because we're just starting. But so far, I think that the best route is to perform things that are outside of the canon, from the well-known composers to the African-American composers for the last 150 years have existed, and their music has mostly been ignored. So that was the main driving force behind starting this company.
Errin Hatter is featuring all composers and performers of color, like in this program, spotlighting Latin composers. This is Jorge Bolani performing Mis Amores, composed by Simon Madera.
Adios, adios, amores. cesaron para mí el placer, la ilusión. Ay de mí, que me mata esta fuerte pasión. Y tú, ángel querido, no has comprendido lo que es amor. Ya cesaron para mí el placer, la ilusión. Ay de mí, que me mata esta fuerte pasión. Y tú, ángel querido, no has comprendido lo que es amor. Piensa mi bien amada, que mis amores son la flor más delicada que te ofrece mi corazón.
Bass baritone Jorge Bolani, performing Mis Amores, composed by Simon Madera. He's now a member of I Colori Dell'opera. Founder Errin Hatter says the search for music by composers of color was easier than she thought.
In just the last 3 months, I have tapped into basically the Harlem Renaissance of of classical music, from Florence Price, Margaret Bonds, and a few others. And a lot of them used settings of Langston Hughes' poems. The fact that they were alive at the same time as this poet that we highly regard and we generally don't hear about them in our education was astounding to me. It was
shocking.
Insane. Yeah. It's just how is it that we missed that? And I mean, it's a simple answer. It's not a part of the canon. I really started this at the end of 2019, and I was so hopeful that 2020 would be the year to shine, and I did not know what that meant at the time. I pressed the purchase button on the website almost at midnight, January 1st, 2020, and then with COVID happening, it just seemed like all of that was going to go down the drain, and it didn't. I actually had, I have to do a shout out to my friends because they said, "So are we doing this online now?" And I said, "You know what? Yes, we are." And that's really why we were able to start, because we're just, I have to be flexible and I have to come up with solutions to not being able to see people in person.
In many ways, the fact that you have to start online might be a good thing.
Yeah, actually, that is a good thing, because with the main problem is ticket sales. How do you sell tickets when nobody knows who you are? And this way, I can use marketing strategies and social media marketing, which is where everybody is right now, to introduce ourselves and to provide quality content. So for me, this actually is better than trying to rent a venue and trying to sell seats and trying to wonder, are we going to make enough profit to pay the singers? In this case, the venue is online, and we can use our network to make sure that people know about the company. So yeah, starting online was actually a good plan.
Give me your vision. What is your vision of what this might be?
So in addition to putting African American singers and other singers of color on a stage, cast in a production where they can be any role, not just the lead in Porgy and Bess or the lead in Madame Butterfly, but to also give us opportunities to learn about new composers, and learn about some of the composers that were just breezed over in the past. And also, we want to do an educational outreach where we're teaching students and giving students in under-supported programs the opportunity to get stage experience. So a typical season in my mind would look like 1 to 2 operas, both connected to educational outreach, and then a summer opera and scenes program for both emerging artists to showcase what they're able to do, and then the students of that program to be able to get that stage experience, and basically either a starting point or a stepping stone into being able to compete with the mainstream schools and the mainstream programs.
Errin Hatter's vision for I Colori Dell'opera is taking shape in the form of her Spring Opera and Vocal Institute. Open auditions are on December 1st. She's also launching the Adopt a Student program. That's for students of all backgrounds who will have access to classical training through the Vocal Institute. Find out more about I Colori Dell'opera by following the links on the Classical Music and Color page on secondstreetdreams.com. We're saying goodbye to someone I've quite frankly never heard of, but who certainly needs some attention on this side of the pond. The voice belongs to Christiane Etta Pierre. She was a soprano who broke ground in France as the country's first black woman to make her mark on the international opera stage. Etta Pierre was born in France's Caribbean territory of Martinique in 1932. Her mother was a piano teacher, and her grandfather exposed her to opera and the people who sang it. In the 1950s, she arrived in Paris for piano studies, and to her surprise was allowed to enroll at the prestigious Paris Conservatory of Music. It shocked her, she said, that a black girl like her could go to that school. She made her debut at the Opéra de Nice in southern France, and from there, her career blossomed. She performed on stages all over Europe. She died in September at the age of 88. The French certainly had a hold on the Caribbean. Another of its former colonies, Haiti, is where my next guest, Jean Rudy Perrault, was born. He prefers to be called Rudy. One of his works is on a fresh new album out this month called Tambour Caché, or Hidden Drum. It's produced by another of my guests, cellist Diana Golden. Diana, he is just one of the composers on this album. Tell me about how you got that together and why.
Well, I had been interested in Haitian music since about 2010 or so, and I think we discussed a little bit previously. That I had been working at a Haitian music center in Boston, and I was teaching kids, but actually they were teaching me about Haitian music, and we would go out into the community and play folk songs, and I just learned a lot about folk songs, but also started getting into Haitian classical music, and started performing a little bit. I had a concert series in Boston at the time, Pride Brand concert series, where we put on a concert, and the kids came and played the La Dessalinienne, the Haitian national anthem, together as a cello choir, and shared stories about their life in Haiti. And so I've been interested in Haitian music since then, and this CD is kind of tying together a lot of the major Haitian composers in the 20th and 21st centuries. So that's kind of my journey of exploring this music in the last 10 years. And I also researched during my doctorate kind of Haitian music history, mostly art music.
The album has 16 tracks of music written by Haitian composers from the 20th and 21st centuries, including, but certainly not limited to, DBR, Carmen Brouard, and Rudy Perrault. His piece is called Brother Malcom, which we will hear in full right after our conversation.
Well, actually, that piece was written for the inauguration of Barack Obama. After the first, I think 2009 it was written. And I just felt compelled to write it because of how I was feeling and how hopeful it was sounding, but also at the same time, how a little voice in the back of my head was saying, this is not necessarily good.
What, the music or the presidency?
Well, the presidency. Well, the presidency itself is good. That was a good thing. But I'm not a pessimist. But I just didn't think that we were ready yet for that kind of having a black president. I mean, I knew that there might be some backlash, and those were the two voices, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, talking to each other about that, and saying Martin Luther King is saying, well, this is hope. We are moving in the right track, and Malcolm X saying, I don't know about this. There may be trouble ahead.
That was your inspiration? Correct.
Yeah, it's just a fictional conversation between Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, just on the inauguration of the 44th president.
And now, Brother Malcom by Rudy Perrault. The piece, Brother Malcom, composed by Rudy Perrault. It was performed by cellist Diana Golden and pianist Sean Chang on the album of classical music by Haitian composers Tanbu Kache, Hidden Drum. You sound like a very thoughtful person, that you spend more time than most people thinking about things before you execute.
I do. Though there are those times that something comes to my brain and I just have to write it. And I'm not sure what it means. I'm not sure where I'm going to use it. I'm not sure in what context that feels. There are certain times I just hear the sounds. I just either thinking about something and I hear a sound and I'll write it down and it's like, okay, I'll use it somewhere. I'm not sure where. Yeah, I just wrote my last piece is called Caged, and it's for flute and double bass. And it is also this was I felt inspired to write. I've compelled, not inspired. I mean, not that sort of subject is not really good inspiration, but I felt compelled to write about the George Floyd murder and also the children's down at the border being caged everywhere. And so feeling that all of us black and brown folks are caged really in this those systemic issues. And that too, I really thought about how to write that piece and probably more cerebral than I needed to be. But at the end, there's certain things that I want to put in the music that perhaps people will not see, but I know it's there, and I've said it.
You heard a bit of the performance of Caged with Dr. Paula Gundmanson playing the flute, who commissioned the piece with Joey Pettit on bass. It is not on the Tanbu Kache album, but it may well help producer and cellist Diana Golden toward her goal. Diana, what are your hopes for this album?
Well, I hope to bring some attention to these composers and their works. Which I obviously love performing, and I hope that they get out there in the universe for more performers to know about.
Cellist Diana Golden, producer of the fresh new album Tanbu Kache, Hidden Drum. We thank her and composer Rudy Perrault for allowing us to play some of the music from the album on the show. Composer Perrault is also the director of orchestras and professor of music at the University of Minnesota in Duluth. Our coda this month is a big thank you to freesound.org and soundbible.com. If you'd like to know more about anything we've mentioned on the show, there are links on the Classical Music and Color page on secondstreetdreams.com. Stay safe and stay healthy, like your life depends on it, because we know it does. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I'm Judelyn Gibson. Thank you for listening to Classical Music in Color. We are the Second Street Dreams audio network on the radio and on the Triple W.